Okay, so in the last slide, I was talking about whether a option was in the money, at the money, or out of the money. Basically, in the money means that you're going to be buying low and selling high, or selling high and buying low. Out of the money means the exact opposite. You're going to be probably buying high and selling low. That's not what you want to do. Or selling low and buying high. That's also not what you want to do. And then I talked about being at the money. At the money means that you're not really making money or you're not really losing money at the strike prices at the current futures value. So this leads into the value of an option. So the value of the option is important because we're going to be talking about the option premium. Remember a couple of videos ago, or a couple of videos ago, I talked about the option premium being the amount that you have to pay the hedger, kind of like it's the premium that you pay that insurance agent. Well, how much of a premium do you pay? Just like an insurance agent, or just like a car insurance, if you have a bad track record where you're going to be a high-risk car driver, or maybe you're relatively young and unexperienced, and you're a relatively high risk for this car insurance company, you're going to have a higher premium. Whereas if you're more experienced driver, a clean record, you're a little bit older, you're probably going to have a lower premium. Well, how do they determine that premium value? Well, it's based off of the value of the option. So the value of the option has two components. It has the intrinsic value and then the time value. So the intrinsic value is the value of an option relative to its underlying futures price. So this is dealing with that previous slide of the intrinsic value. We're looking at, are you in the money, at the money, or out of the money? So let's say, for example, that you engage in a $169 put option. Remember that put option means you have the right but not the obligation to sell. And this 169, but I meant 196. This 196 is actually that strike price. So you actually can engage and sell a futures contract at $196. Whereas the underlying futures price was $192. So you can engage, or you can exercise the option and sell at $196 per hundredweight, and then buy back that futures contract at $192 and make a profit of $4. Well, you are in the money. That's the intrinsic value, is dealing with, are you in the money, at the money, or out of the money? And if you're in the money, well, that's more of a risk to that rider of the option. Where if you're out of the money, that's less of a risk because there's less chances of it moving against the rider of the option. Whereas if you're at the money, you're not quite sure if it's going to go up or down. So the intrinsic value deals with how much risk are you going to start off with this contract that leads into this option premium. And the more that you're in the money, the higher that risk is and the higher that premium is going to be. Versus the time value. The second component is this time value. So there is going to be a time between the option quote and the contract expiration. That's the time that we're talking about here. The longer this time period, the greater the implicit value of the option. Now, implicit means that it's an implied value. It's not, you can't really actually measure it in dollars and cents, but it's an implied value because here's why. The more days before expiration means that there is a higher probability, there's a higher chance of the market moving to improve the intrinsic value of the option. So what I mean by that is, let's say that it is January and you are going to be engaging in an option contract for, let's say for October. So there's going to be about 10 months in between January and October. So there's 10 months. And right now you engage in a contract that is way out of the money. It is out of the money. Your intrinsic value is low. It is a low intrinsic value, and therefore your option premium isn't that high, or at least you would think it shouldn't be, because we're out of the money. We're not really posing much of a risk, right? But in that 10-month time span, it offers a lot of time for the contract to be actually begin to move in a way that the intrinsic value goes up. So over that 10-month time span, prices could actually move where this contract is closer to being in the money, or it's less out of the money, goes to be actually being at the money, and then actually begins to move into the money. So the longer the time period is, the greater the probability, the more chances that this market has for that contract to actually move to where it's in the money. So the longer this time value is, the higher this option premium is going to be because that time value is high. Whereas on the other hand, a short time period, well, let's say that you engage in an option contract for January where the underlying month is actually going to be in February. You buy that option contract in January for a February futures contract. Well, there's not much time between these two, between this month or in this month time span for those prices to change. So in that case, the time value is going to be relatively low. So both the intrinsic value and the time value, both of these lead into this option premium. So the option premium is the value that the hedger or speculator is going to pay for the right to take a futures position later. It's going to be based on both the intrinsic and the time value. And remember, this option premium, that's that premium that you're going to pay to that writer for the right but not the obligation to engage in this contract. Basically, that's that premium that you're going to pay to the writer of the option for that insurance policy that we are calling this option premium, or that we're calling this option.